Hello, Dr. Francisca Anene here, and this is PPL421 Land Law 1. I trust that you'll be making progress, enjoying our lessons. So, today we are going to be learning another topic on land law. Of course, you remember that land law 1 majors on customary rules of land law, customary land tenure. So, let's see what we have today. So, as usual, take notes, take part in the activity, and I promise you, you will get better at it. So, some of the things that you will learn at the end of this lesson is to be able to classify the forms of title relating to acquisition of land, to differentiate between original and derivative title with practical examples, and then to properly classify the form of title obtained by conquest. So, forms of title to land. We talked about title in our first lesson. I'll encourage you to go back and refresh your memory on what we mean by title. But forms of title to land are there are two major types. There's original title and there's derivative title. Original title speaks of the root of title, meaning that there was no other person who had title before, whoever it is that now has the root of title is the owner of that title. And of course, it is the very foundation. Whilst derivative title is title derived from either an original owner or another source, okay, maybe someone who got from the original and passed on. Title can also be expressed to be absolute or restricted. When it is absolute, it is final, there's no encumbrance whatsoever. When it is restricted, it is subject to better title of another part. So why is it important to find out the mode of acquisition of title? Because the mode of acquisition speaks to the means of proving title. If you're claiming title to land, you must be able to trace your root of title to be successful in your claim. So now let's talk about modes of acquisition under original title. There are majorly two: settlement and conquest. Settlement is usually an incidence of customary land tenure, and it refers to where a first settler of land lays claim to a portion of the land. And claim means he didn't abandon it at any point in time, because if he abandons it, then he cannot come back and lay claim after someone else has taken over. And it also means that there's no adverse claim on the land. The settler has absolute title and then may be able to pass title to others. On this, you will see the case of Owoniye and Omotosho, which recognizes it as a form of acquisition of title in Nigeria. Of course, the Yorubas can point to the Oduduwa legend of their root of title. Same for the Hausas, who can point to the Bayajida legend. Now, the second means of original title, acquisition of original title, as we said, is conquest. And again, it is only possible under native law and custom. It means the displacement of the original title and thereafter establishment of absolute title over that land on which the original holder has been displaced. And even though you would say it is derivative, or you would think it is derivative because someone else was there before he was displaced, it is not regarded as derivative because that displacement resulted in the extinguishing of all prior absolute title on that land. So the person who won as a result of conquest becomes the original title holder, and it is like there was nothing in existence before he did displace the other party. Now, note that acquisition of titles through settlement and conquest are no longer possible in Nigeria because, first of all, there's hardly any bare land in Nigeria that is not subject to ownership for anyone to come and start to settle. And again, conquest and violent displacement are now criminal offenses. So let's quickly take an activity. I need you to differentiate between settlement and conquest as forms of absolute title. I'll just give you some time to think about this and then we'll make progress. Okay, so let's move on. We have talked about original title. Now let's talk about derivative title. Remember, we said that derivative is not original, it's not the root of title. It means that the title that is now claimed was derived from maybe the original title holder or subsequently passed on to whoever is claiming derivative title. And there are many forms of derivative title. There's sale, there's gift, which can be absolute or conditional. Conditional gift is also called customary tenancy. There's borrowing, and there's pledge. So let's look at them. Sale. Sale is the permanent transfer of title to land for valid consideration. Note, consideration does not have to be cash. It can be money or it can be money's worth. And this title of transfer of title is only possible or will only be valid if the person who did the transfer has the capacity to transfer. So if the person who doing the transfer is not the owner of the land, then it will not be valid because you cannot give what you don't have. Okay, now a sale results in change of ownership. Whether you formalize it with documents or not, that's what it results in. And then there may be sale recognized in law. Sale can be under customary law or under English law, and there are different rules for each type. So whichever type you choose, you must comply by the rules for that type. Let's look at requirements for sale under English law. For sale under English law, there must be proof of payment and then issuance of receipts. Now, it doesn't have to be the receipt as you know it. It may just be an acknowledgement in the deed that the other party has received payment. And then a conveyance must be executed, the deed of conveyance in writing. So evidence of sale under English law is conveyance in writing. It has to be by deed, it has to be under sale. Under sale means where you see signed, sealed, and delivered by blah 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 and all that. And then note that if a sale is purported to be carried out under English law and there is no execution of these title documents that we have talked about, the buyer only gets equitable interest. And of course, you know that there's a limit to which one can exercise rights under equitable interest. On this point, you look at the case of Ogunbambi and Aboaba. So, for customary sale, capacity is very important because ownership of land rests usually with the community or the family. So whoever it is that is selling the property must have the capacity to sell. And then purchase needs to be concluded in the presence of witnesses. It's not enough for two parties to sit down and say, I sell, you buy. Okay? And then there must be handover. The buyer must be physically put in possession. So after the sale, the buyer or purchaser is let into possession of the land. Then you can say that customary sale under customary law has taken place. Of course, consideration also comes in, but remember when we talked about consideration for money or money's worth, it's not as significant whether it is cash or something else. Okay, that is exchanged in consideration. So now gift. As we said, a gift can be absolute or conditional. An absolute gift has the same effect as a sale because what it does is a transfer of ownership. And under customary law, an absolute gift is irreversible. So whether or not the buyer, now commits acts of misconduct after the gift has been granted, it cannot be reversed because the purchaser, that is the buyer, has become the owner of the property, and so it doesn't pass back or forth. The second type of gift, of course, we know is the conditional gift, and I said that that is a customary tenancy. What it does is that it only transfers possessory title. It doesn't transfer ownership, so it's not of the same effect as a sale. And then um, it may be reversible in the effect of misconduct, but usually that is a question of fact depending on the scenario in question. So now let's look at borrowing. Borrowing, as we said, is another form of derivative title, a means of establishing derivative title, and it is a temporary grant of land to someone. So a lender and the borrower. So the lender grants land to the borrower. Now this is also more common under customary law. And when land is granted, it is usually for a particular purpose. And it is because of that that is also for a particular time period. So, for instance, if you look at the image before us, if land is granted for maybe coconut milk production, and parties agree that you will do this for three harvesting seasons and then you will give back the land to me. After the end of the three harvesting seasons, the relationship comes to an end. Now, it also only grants possessory title. And I have said, of course, that is for a temporary purpose. On that point, you look at Adeyemo and Ladipo. So let's look at pledge. Pledge is very similar to borrowing because transfer of possession takes place. And but the thing is, it's usually this transfer of possession of land is usually because a loan has been advanced and so the land is being given as security for loan. Again, it is temporary. It does not grant ownership rights. It only grants possessory title and it is always redeemable. Please note this point. Unlike a mortgage that the where there's a default, the power of sale can take effect. For a pledge, particularly under customary law, it can never happen. It is always redeemable as long as the pledgee is able to return whatever money he borrowed. He is expected that his land should be given to him, and of course it is subject to the quick quid rule. So if the pledgee gives his land and the other party goes and does whatever development he wants to do on the land, when it's time he will return the land to the pledgee with all that has been developed. So let's take a second activity to deepen our understanding. So I need you to differentiate between an absolute gift and a conditional gift under customary law. Okay, so some of the things we have learned in this lesson is categories of title to land. We have refreshed our memory from lesson one, and then we have looked at the modes of acquisition of original title as well as modes of acquisition of derivative title. We have differentiated between original and derivative. We have given examples of each, and then we have also differentiated between absolute and restrictive title. Remember that this lesson is downloadable and you can always view it again and again to help you understand it better. So, if you have any questions, please feel free to post it on the discussion forum and then we can talk about it. So, I'll see you at our next class. Bye.